Majora's Mask, Chapter 74, Across the Realms. In Hyrule. His feet were sore, but that wouldn't stop him from saying all three blessings. The others are weak, Murray thought. The gods will find a punishment suitable for them, all in good time. Murray shuffled his feet through the grand archway and left behind the morning sun. The Temple of Time was where his heart would always belong. The pillars were tall and wide, their white, untainted stone held up an arched ceiling half-bathed in shadow. The pristine windows allowed daylight to bathe the monochromatic stone with holiness. It glowed with the goodness of the goddesses, and its wonder and grace filled every fiber of Murray's bones, no matter how many times he saw it. A round pedestal was near the entrance, bearing the image of the legendary Light Medallion. His soft padded shoes passed over the artwork and onto the red carpet. His robe was drawn close to hide his wrinkled face and simple tunic, displaying ultimate deference to this place's power as he reached the end of the room. The holiest place of them all, he thought. He would always feel like a child, humbled as he was the first time his father brought him here. The gods will punish them for one day abandoning their duties for a day. Clergy should pray even more fervently on holidays. In Murray's opinion, prayer could never rest. He would remain the most devoted servant. The gateway to the sacred realm towered over him. A table of dark green stone separated him from it, which served as a display for three levitating gems: Kokiri's emerald, Goron's ruby, and Zora's sapphire. The spiritual stones were each a distinct color, sporting golden bands that bound the flawless rocks and their magic together. They were no bigger than his hand, but they held all the power of three collective civilizations in Hyrule. The gems had been created for the entryway that was sealed shut behind them. It was the grandest door he would ever see. The smooth surface depicted a holy sphere that radiated light eternal. Above it, there was another more sacred image, the Triforce. Three golden triangles, each representing the goddesses, glowed modestly from their resting place above the door. Though its power was locked away behind the sealed gateway, the simple image bearing its likeness was awe-inspiring. I'm home, Murray thought. The priest traveled to the end of the carpet reverently, beholding the three spiritual stones. The hero of time brought them here, Murray remembered. He'd gathered the three stones and played the Song of Time, which had opened the doors and given him access to the Master Sword. Which is fine in itself, but I let Ganon follow in right after him. Through those doors, the hero had been sealed away for 7 years, only exiting to find a wasteland that he'd accidentally allowed Ganon to create. If the hero had never opened those doors, Ganon would have never found the Triforce. But that's history, he understood. History that had never happened. The hero of time had battled Ganon only to seal him within these very doors, across all of time. Now the Triforce, the Master Sword, and Ganon were where they belonged, and none of those things would ever find their way out. As long as that Ocarina and that boy keep their distance. Which was almost a certainty now. The hero had vanished after his beloved princess died. Murray turned away from the spiritual stones to admire the grand room more. This room should never be empty, he thought grimly. Not after all the gods and their heroes have done for us. They would be punished, he knew, but he wouldn't, because he was here to thank them. It had been several years since the Civil War, and the crisis with Ganon was a nightmare that only existed in stories. The gods' prosperity was boundless, and yet Hylians continued on in ignorance. I know better, Murray thought. I know, and they don't. Murray knelt before the table, bowing before Kokiri's emerald on the far left. The green light washed over his face, even from within his hood. Favor, we accept your blessings, he said solemnly. Favor, we bathe in the life you give us and rejoice in the chance to be. We find one another in your glorious creation and learn to love, live, and grow. Thank you for your courage. May you continue to bless us with life. The priest rose, shuffling over to the next stone and bowing his head again. The crimson light was far more foreboding, and he knew that she was the fiercest goddess of the three. Din, we accept your blessings. Din, we fight for our chance to build upon the rock you laid bare for us. We embed our roots within your earth, so that we may grow strong and firm on the ground you have given us. Thank you for your power, and may you continue to guide us to fight for that which we hold dear. The deep blue glow of the sapphire was last. Nehru, we accept your blessings. Nehru, we obey the laws you have put to govern the earth and the living. We accept your order and strive to adhere to your harmony that keeps the world in balance. Thank you for your wisdom, and may you... Crack. Murray stopped. He must have imagined it, but the sound had seemed so clear. He kept his head down as he dismissed the fictitious noise. We accept your order and strive to adhere to your harmony that keeps the world in balance. Thank you for... Crack. Thank you for... Crack. Murray's legs shook as he slowly raised his head. There was a single crack in the doors of time. Was that there before? He didn't think so. It cut directly through the image in the center where the pristine, clear, white marble should be faultless. Crack. It got worse. Murray stood as he watched the fissure spread. It cut through the holy doors like a snake through a pond. Specks of stone sprinkled over the small stairs, and the hole widened to reveal space on the other side. No, Murray thought. No! The priest still shook terribly as he backed away. This is impossible. The crack only grew, however, widening to crumble the barrier, holding all that was damnable and holy behind it. When the first chunk fell and hit the floor, Murray screamed. The priest's feet were no longer shuffling as he sprinted to the temple's exit. The glowing walls and arched ceiling seemed to dim as he retreated to the early morning. Fëanor, Din, and Nehru, save me. Fëanor, Din, and Nehru, have mercy on my soul. Fëanor, Din, and Nehru. He tripped on the hem of his robes, collapsing onto the central pedestal. He was face to face with the medallion of light. He heard a deep rumble behind him as another piece of the door exploded over the table with the spiritual stones. Murray was only frozen for a moment. Then he ran back into Hyrule's busiest square. He's back! The priest screamed. He's back! He's back! The king of evil has returned! Lacey trotted slowly beneath him, barely flinching in the face of the downpour. The man riding her was extremely uncomfortable too. The rain was loud on his helmet. His every breath tasted like wet metal. The storm is not going to end, will it? He thought. If that was the case, Kakariko village wouldn't last much longer. He pulled on Lacey's reins and she obeyed, slowing down. She shook her head, though her efforts to rid her neck of damp, heavy hair were in vain. They passed carefully between the mountainous walls and approached the wooden gate. The sheath of water was constant, an ever-present curtain that was impossible to draw. It took until he was just in front of the gate before he even saw the other guard. Dustin? He asked. The guard standing at Kakariko village's entrance seemed immensely more miserable than him. He barely opened his visor against the storm. Bracken, he greeted. Word from the king. Just orders, he said, lifting his own visor from atop Lacey. The rain kept falling, even his bones felt wet. His comrade couldn't hear him, so he raised his voice over the weather. Just orders. The king wants me to search the town for the hero of time. He's still missing. Dustin's expression turned grimmer. I haven't seen him since he came through on Epona the second time. That was a little over a month ago. He paused. Feel free to see for yourself, but I doubt luck will be on your side. Bracken nodded. As you say, the king wants to be absolutely certain. He stopped, however, when he noticed a specter in his fellow soldier's eyes. Something was wrong. Dustin needed no prodding. They're in a panic. He gulped. They don't know what to do. Bracken didn't reply. Instead, he urged Lacey onward into the village. Kakariko's streets were deserted, overrun with newly formed waterfalls running along the mountainside. The buildings were not built to direct the water anywhere helpful, funneling it into a half-swamp. The building on his right had collapsed. The purple walls were a ruin open to the sky.
Spiders, he remembered. There were only ever spiders in that house.
The windmill in the back had stopped turning, its long arms too saturated to move. Not a single villager stirred in the town. The village, for all intents and purposes, was a bowl. The north end sloped upward into an incline to eventually reach the Death Mountain's peak. That trek was a long and perilous one, but it was now impossible thanks to the never-ending storm. The iron fence that marked the mountain entrance had become sewer gates, and these homes were on the wrong side of them. Bracken watched the water in silent awe. Seeing it was something else. Ever since the doors of times had cracked open, strange things had happened. Thankfully, no great monster had crawled out yet, but guards were constantly stationed in the temple in case something ever did. The large chamber where the Master Sword usually rested had been replaced with absolute darkness, and the only guard that ventured inside had never been seen again.
Something's waiting. Something's biding its time.
Looking at the weather, it wasn't hard to connect the dots. The storm started the night after the doors cracked. Lacey whined, and Bracken steadied her as she danced on her hooves. He guided her out of the large pit of mud, leading them further into the village. He glanced at the well as he passed by, watching it overflow. Water gushed over stone rims to join the forming swamp. Bracken approached a small 2-story house, finally sliding from his saddle and tethering Lacey to the post out front. He took a deep breath and knocked on the door.
Anju?
He pounded his gauntlets on the wood again.
Anju, I speak for the king. His Majesty thinks you have information.
No response. Bracken turned to Lacey, who simply watched him with annoyed eyes.
Anju!
Still, no response. He grabbed the doorknob, found it unlocked, and pushed himself inside. His eyes scanned the large room, from the bookshelf to the table and the fireplace across the room. Unlike many of the other homes, it had not suffered interior damage yet. He found a woman sitting before the fireplace, a blanket drawn over her shoulders. She hung her head low and stared into the flames. Bracken shut the door behind him, reducing the rain to a distant muffle. Water dripped from his armor and the floodboards creaked beneath his boots, but the woman never turned to greet him.
Anju? Anju, it's me, Bracken. His Majesty sent me?
The fire washed over her face, and her auburn hair was unusually frayed. She didn't say anything until he was halfway to her. You're here to ask about Link. Her monotone voice was void of any feeling.
We need the hero of time, Bracken said, shifting uncomfortably. The doors of the temple have opened, and neither he nor the Ocarina can be found. His Majesty suspects that the rain is a curse, all because those doors opened. That it's Ganon.
Anju took a long time to respond. I don't know if Link exists anymore. It wasn't the hero of time that came to visit me after Zelda died. He was a walking corpse, a boy and a knight no longer.
Bracken balked. We need him, Anju. Did he go north of the mountains again? Has anyone seen him since he left the castle? He doesn't have to draw his sword. He can play the Song of Time, and the doors will be sealed back. The rain would stop.
He needs time to heal. I'll remind you, Sir Knight, that he is a grieving child. I hope grown men with years of military training soon stop turning to him to solve their problems. He could hear the pain in her voice. Link wasn't the only one who'd lost a lover recently. Café had been stabbed in a robbery in the Hyrule Castle marketplace. The thief and murderer had never been found.
The grown men of His Majesty's military do not possess his magic. You know as well as I that this is not a matter of steel and warfare. We do not possess the means to defeat such evil. He paused. Believe me, I wish we could take this burden. If Link doesn't return soon to help his country, his kingdom may soon face annihilation. This is his home too.
Anju sighed, pulling her covers closer. I know as much as you do. It's been over a month since Link came through here, and he left Hyrule through Death Mountain. As far as I know,
He hasn't come back." She added nothing else. Bracken remained standing there for a moment longer, wondering if she hid anything. He decided she wasn't, and turned to leave. "Thank you, Anju," he said. "I'm sorry fate has taken us down such a cruel path. I thought the hard times were over when Link sealed those doors." "We all did," she said. For the first time since he entered Anju's home, she turned to face him. "Does the king have a plan, in case the rain doesn't stop?" "A plan?" Bracken thought. "He wants to find the hero of time, Ocarina of Time in hand, and so he can play the Song of Time in front of the broken damn doors of time." Time. It always came back to time, and they were running out. What can the king do? Pray for a magic shield to save us from the rain and the king of evil? He is only a man. He finally forced himself to answer. "His Majesty is working on something. Right now, our plan is to find the hero. We'll keep searching." Anju's eyes flickered back to the fire, and Bracken left the house. Lacey neighed at his appearance, buzzing her lips hopefully. She was ready to be dry again. "We'll get you out of this storm soon enough." He turned to the mountains, however, and decided he wasn't so sure. The rain never stopped. He absently picked at his chair's armrest until a bit of red paint came free. He fiddled with the flake between his fingers. "This chair has been here for thousands of years," he thought, "and it's going to fall while it's my turn to sit in it." The goddesses didn't seem to want him to keep it. The civil war had waged for decades. The king of evil had only recently challenged his throne, and now their short year of peace was ending. A soldier had entered his chamber soaking wet. Even from within his great hall, the rain was thunderous. The arched ceilings, wide windows, and ancient architecture would only protect him for so long. A long blue carpet ran all the way from his chair down a set of stairs and to the wide, open doorway separating him from the storm. The other guards lining the throne remained attentive, watching the conversation. When Daphnis accidentally ripped off more paint, he returned his idle hand to his white beard and mustache. The red robes adorning him were regal and fine, and the crown atop his head was thin and golden. "You're leading the most powerful land in all the world, and you must reflect that power," he thought. The chair he sat upon certainly did. In addition to its large stone base, a rather grandiose image of the gods handing down the Triforce hovered over him. "Your Majesty," the guard said again. The Hylian crest on his breastplate reflected firelight. Water dripped from his helmet to the carpet as he knelt and angled his face down. "I am deeply sorry." "The hero of time was nowhere to be found." His voice boomed, even in its calm melancholy. "You searched the entire village." "Yes, Your Grace." Daphne sighed. "You may rise, Bracken." Bracken did just that, lifting his visor too so his green eyes could meet the king's. They were no longer wrinkled above a smile in this gray, dismal future. Bracken would never entertain his daughter in the gardens again. It was almost too much to meet the soldier's eyes, because then he could hear Zelda laughing. "I beg your apology, Your Majesty," Bracken said. "The Cuckoo Keeper had no additional information." "The Cuckoo Keeper, the hero of time, Your Majesty." In such desperate times, formalities were at the forefront again. He wondered if people felt safer hiding behind them, or if they no longer needed their king to be a friend. A friend might fail to save them. A ruler, or a god, could not. "She shared nothing with you?" the king asked. "Only that the hero left over a month ago, north of the mountains. No one knows where he's been since." "And what about Almond?" His dear friend had left just before the hero of time on a personal errand. Almond rarely left the capital for longer than a week. His red hair, purple robes, and cheery laugh had been missing almost as long as Link. "Must everyone I care for fade away?" he thought. "I have no news on Almond either," Bracken said uncertainly. He cleared his throat. His mask shop has been unattended for a while now. No one's really been asking about him." That was a stupid question, Daphnis thought. This is a time of crisis. Your gods have better things to do than worry about a family friend. The hero of time was much, much more than that. How humbling that we turn to a 12-year-old for a savior.
The goddesses certainly had a strange way of choosing heroes. Ganon, a former friend to the crown, had assaulted the castle in betrayal, and soon after, he'd fled to pursue Daphne's daughter. It was the boy who'd stopped him by some magic at the Temple of Time.
But it appears he cannot save us this time.
A last-ditch effort to find the hero had been their penultimate resort. Only one option remained, but Daphnis was afraid.
A sacred king, a grieving father.
Daphne's hand clenched his armrest again at the thought of his still cold daughter.
Your Majesty, I'm willing to form a rescue party and continue searching. We can go into the mountains and further north. We don't have to give up. Link is out there somewhere, and he must have the Ocarina too. If you think the only way to fix the doors of time and stop the rain is finding him, then I do not think the rain is a result of the monster behind those doors,
Daphne said. Bracken's brow wrinkled.
Do you mean to say it's just a storm? That this will pass?
No, Daphne said, but he would say no more. This most recent apocalypse was his fault, and that was a burden he only should carry.
What would you have us do then?
Bracken asked.
Your Majesty, if I may be so bold, Hyrule cannot survive this storm much longer. Kakariko village is flooding and half a swamp. We've had forest children fleeing from their homes, even though they know doing so will kill them. The marketplace is empty because a stall won't stand up in the square for more than a minute. Half of your force is waiting in the Temple of Time for some great monster to come bashing through what's left of the doors. Your people look to you for help.
At first, Daphnis was taken aback. He stared down on his loyal subject, whose chest heaved in and out from beneath the armor he wore so proudly. Have I failed so greatly as a leader? Daphnis wondered. He thought of the red boat being fashioned for him deep within the castle's bowels.
A leader doesn't run.
But a king had to survive. It would be a long time before it came to using that boat anyways. Bracken remained standing tall, waiting for a response humbly.
There is no pride or pointedness to that gaze.
Bracken, I am honored that...
Your Majesty!
Daphne's head shot up, as did all the guards. Their spears sang in unison as his garrison armed themselves. Bracken turned on his heels, eyes wide. The scream had come from another guard whose station was not the throne room. He wandered in breathless and missing his helmet. His hair was wild and soaked, and a sheet of blood poured across the left side of his face. His frantic, wild eyes shone with terror.
Your Majesty!
Bracken ran to the guard's side, and Daphnis jumped to his feet from atop the throne. His honor guard marched in to close the open space between them.
It's the door!
The guard said, dropping his shattered spear when Bracken finally reached him. He leaned on his comrade for support.
They just started pouring out, and I saw him.
He threw himself off Bracken and past the honor guard. They uncertainly let him as he stumbled to the bottom of Daphne's stairs.
They're trying to hold them off, but they got the messenger. They sent me here to warn you. They're coming for the castle.
Daphne's face was stone. Brecken's fell to horror. Half the honor guard went to the throne room doors, realizing the danger lay without. Those who remained looked up to their ruler.
There is no more time to waste.
Daphnis no Hansen Hyrule thought.
This is your kingdom to save, and fear no longer has a place for you.
He held onto a memory of Zelda as he cleared his throat.
My loyal god,
Daphnis said, taking a step down the staircase.
You have sworn an allegiance to your kingdom, to me, and to your people, vowing to protect it in the darkest of times. It is all of you who wield the sword of justice and stop those who threaten our peace. In a time without heroes or sorcerers, we turn to steel to repel darkness that would corrupt all we hold dear. We turn to each other.
He paused again to read the faces of his men, but they only waited for more.
When I first heard that the doors of time had cracked open, I prayed to the gods that I'd rather see my kingdom drown than fall in the hands of such great evil.
The eyes of his men widened.
It appears they saw fit to grant that wish.
Daphnis found the words hard to say. Despite his initial hesitancy, his most loyal of men deserved the truth.
Whether from some dark joke or desperate ploy to stop the world from falling to corruption. It is our current reality. And if Faeror, Din, and Nehru will it. When he spoke, it was the true-born leader of Hyrule whose voice boomed through the throne room. I am ordering the evacuation of Hyrule. Let the shadows find nothing but an empty castle, and may they drown beneath the waves they hope to rule. Get as many people to flee to the mountaintops as you can, quickly, before the shadows make it out of the Temple of Time. Kakariko Village, Lake Hylia, Lon Lon Ranch, everywhere. It is time to flee. The gods have made their will known to me, and I am helpless, but to obey.
Mallan's hands shook as she tried to fasten the saddle to her horse.
4 hours, she thought. The king gave us 4 hours to evacuate.
The animals in her barn were just as terrified, mooing and neighing at the sound of the storm. Or maybe her fear was just contagious.
Hyrule's going to end in a great flood.
The soldier had stormed into her ranch, frantically looking for someone in charge of the animals. He found her first.
Flee, she thought. Leave for the mountains.
The guard had left right after, deciding that a young child could spread his warning to everyone else. She tried her best. The horse screamed, struggling against her, ripping the saddle away again.
Melody,
Mallan said.
Come back!
She hung on against her better judgment, and the horse flung the small child into hay and dirt. Melody fled through the open gate and into the ranch, greeted by the storm as she disappeared into the gray, wet dark. Mallan stood carefully, pulling straw from her long red hair. Her shoulder hurt now, but thankfully the fall had been mostly soft.
Mallan!
The young girl found her father in the door. He had a large stomach, strong arms, and thinning hair, but his usually calm eyes were wide with fear.
You let Melody get away.
I'm sorry,
Mallan said. The rain was loud, even with the wooden roof over her head, making it hard to hear. The frantic pigs, cuckoos, and cows didn't help either.
I tried to stop her and...
Her father interrupted her by stepping into the barn and pulling her into a hug. Mallan finally allowed herself to shake, resting her head on his shoulder. I'm sorry I got mad at you, her father said. I'm scared too.
We have to hurry, she said. He said only 4 hours.
I know, her father said. He stepped away and Mallan straightened herself, wiping her eyes. We need Melody, though. I'll help get the rest of the animals who can flee already. Can you try and bring her back here?
Can I?
Mallan wondered. Melody usually listened to her, so calming her shouldn't be hard. She couldn't have gone far either.
Yes, I can do that.
Thank you, darling, her father said, forcing a smile. Come back if she's too skittish.
I will.
Mallan left the smells of animal dung, hay, and wet wood. Heavy, wet air replaced it, and she was immediately soaked again. The farm girl was used to the feeling by now, walking fast to the horse track. Lon Lon Ranch was situated in the middle of Hyrule Field. Natural rock walls surrounded the premises. A trail behind Mallan eventually led out to the rest of their kingdom. The barn and her family's house flanked the border's opening, but she headed to where it widened out as damp hair clung to her face. The thick curtain of rain obscured the horse track and the fenced field it surrounded. The tall stone storage tower in the far corner of their property was a mere shadow in the storm. She tried in vain to find her steed. The gray waterfall practically blinded her, and her footsteps were heavy in the swampy mud.
I haven't seen a sky or sun in days,
Mallan realized. Hyrule had been suspended under this perpetual cloud of darkness.
The gods? An evil wizard? Just a storm?
No one seemed to know for sure, but she supposed it didn't matter. Evacuating was all they could do. The 5 minutes it took to find Melody were agony. By some miracle, she calmed and led her back to her father. It took a lot of cooing and assertive handling, but soon the barn's light was just before them, spilling from the doorway and cutting through the storm. Before she entered, Mallan spotted a figure entering the ranch. It wore a drawn hood and cloak. The tall, thin person walked up the pathway from Hyrule Field. Mallan's heart skipped a beat.
Who is that?
The dark shape merely continued approaching. She recalled the guard's warning of the King of Evil's shadowy assassins.
Who's there?
Mallan shouted. She waited for a response, holding the reins of her horse protectively.
Who's there?
She yelled again. Her father watched from inside the barn at the sound of his daughter's voice.
It's me!
A feminine voice called back. Millan took a moment to recognize it.
Anju?
Millan's father sprinted from the barn to help her.
Get Melody inside, I've got Anju.
Millan obeyed, leading Melody to her stall and closing her gate. Preparing her would have to wait now. Millan pulled as much water from her hair as she could while her father supported Anju's remaining journey into the barn. The cuckoo keeper shook. Her wet hood fell to reveal a pale face and wide eyes. Millan had never seen her like that, so overwhelmed with terror. Their damp blankets offered Anju little relief as they led her to sit on a crate by a crackling torch. "You walked all the way here from Kakariko village?" her father asked, aghast.
She said, trembling. I didn't know where else to go. I couldn't go up to the mountains by myself, and I didn't want to be seen by the others.
Why not? Millan's father asked. There are plenty of people there who would have helped you.
Yes, but...
She trailed off, still huddled over her wet clothes.
I can't tell anyone. I can't.
I'll get you more clothes, Millan's father said. He left the barn, leaving Millan alone with Anju. She remained sitting on the crate, staring at the floor and shivering.
She looks so sick,
Millan thought.
Are you okay, Miss Anju?
Anju smiled weakly, a dismissive gesture to comfort a child.
I'll be fine.
It was clear that she would not, though. Her father returned with a bundle of warm clothes, somehow hidden from the rain. I brought a better towel, too, he said, laying everything in her lap. Millan and I can leave you while you change, but What? Anju said something, but it was inaudible from where Millan stood. The young girl watched her father's eyes widen. What? He asked, as if he hadn't heard either. Millan took a step forward as Anju moved her lips again.
I'm pregnant,
she whispered. Millan didn't understand.
She was never married, though,
she thought.
How could she be pregnant?
Her betrothed had died a couple of months ago. Millan's father uncertainly held Anju's shoulder, not knowing what to say. I see, he said. Some complicated thought passed through his mind as he watched the young woman in distress. Millan didn't understand.
Did Anju do something wrong?
She thought. The girl had heard of harlots before, punished for wicked deeds that begot children without fathers. But Anju wasn't like that. She was too nice and could never do anything wicked. Anju, that doesn't matter right now, her father finally said, though he sounded grave. And I pray that your friends in Kakariko village would have understood too. But it's too late for that. You can come with us now. We'll get you to safety. Millan remained standing there for the longest time as Anju kept her head rested on her father's shoulder. Trembling in the limited warmth and shelter their barn provided, it came to an end when they heard a neigh from outside.
Oh, but all the horses are inside,
Millan thought, looking to see Melody and the others in their pens.
Whose horse is that? Another guard's?
Millan watched her father tell Anju he'd be right back. The young girl awkwardly made eye contact with the sick cuckoo keeper before she walked outside herself. Millan's father was attempting to calm a stray horse.
Huh, except it's not a stray,
she thought, paying attention to its saddle. He grabbed the reins and attempted to ease the steed before it could storm past.
Whoa, girl, whoa!
Her father managed to successfully stop the horse, and as Millan got closer, she recognized the mane and her neigh too. Her eyes widened.
Epona!
She exclaimed.
Stay back, Millan, she's scared.
Millan did, keeping her distance.
It's Epona, father! She found her way back!
A thought occurred to her as her father kept calming the lost horse.
Where's Link?
Her father's face had turned even more grave, though. Millan walked closer despite his warning and discovered what was wrong herself, a marking on Epona's forehead.
Is that...
blood, her father said. It was a handprint, now long dried. The crimson mark was a stain on the horse's nose, somehow surviving the storm. Epona neighed shrilly as the rain kept beating down on all of Hyrule. In Termina. Light shone inside. One moment, the shadow had been sitting in absolute blackness, trapped in the dark chamber it had fallen into. The next moment, the stone slab far above had opened again. There was no gradual opening or noisy clanking of gears. It had been instantaneous.
The Song of Time,
the red-eyed demon realized.
The boy played it.
It was now the dawn of the first day again, and the faint light of the thief's hideout had returned. Dark Link stood.
That means the petulant fool is alive again.
No matter. It knew the thief's dark mask had been destroyed. The shadow had grown concerned when the hideout started shaking. The boy must have successfully played his song with only seconds to spare. The demon had expected the walls to come caving in at any moment to crush and eradicate everything.
I'm not even sure I would have survived the moon.
Dark Link mused as the shadow crossed the dark cavern. It was empty and blank. The mask had been on a conveyor belt leading it to nothing. The shadow bent to retrieve one of the boy's arrows. It had been struck by two, and the light magic had burnt.
Just like when the Skull Kid ripped the magic out of me.
During the couple of hours it had waited for the world to end, it had devised a plan. The battle with the boy, fairy, and thief had ended perfectly in Majora's favor. Dark Link kept one of the arrows as it scaled the wall. Its stomach and shoulder still hurt, but the wounds had begun to heal. The cracked, dried skin and flesh were slow to recover.
The light magic was strong and concentrated, but that'll be a good thing in the end.
The demon could feel some of it still radiating from the arrow's tip. The shadow reached the hole and crawled to find itself within the conveyor belt's glass. Dark Link drew a dagger and used all of its strength to shatter the barrier. The shadow jumped to the floor. The hallway was as it remembered it. The bald thief stood in shock, half bent over the long demon's sword he discovered on his floor.
My blade traveled back in time with me,
Dark Link realized. Clearly, the thief hoped to claim it for himself. He trembled at the presence of the shadow, but Dark Link didn't even give him 7 seconds. By the time the thief opened his mouth, the red-eyed demon had already crossed the room. Dark Link sliced his neck in one quick motion. The thief choked and gurgled on blood, and his knees buckled as he fell to the floor and died. Dark Link retrieved its sword and searched the hideout until it found matches. Then, Dark Link walked back into Ocarina Canyon. The early morning was bright and pleasant. The sun had yet to break the canyon walls. Dark Link began its long hike. It walked past the waterfalls and eventually to the cliff near the graveyard entrance. Dark Link scaled that and continued into Termina Field. It reached Clocktown too, but didn't stop there. The shadow walked around the walls to its northern point, going onward into Snowhead. The Dodongos guarding the gorge shied away to either side, not daring to challenge the dark creature. The ice barrier was easy to break. Day turned to night, and night turned to day. The moon grew closer, but Dark Link's legs tirelessly took it from Ocarina Canyon to Snowhead.
You will need an item that the masked man left behind,
its master had said. Dark Link remembered the words of Majora. The mask had spoken a final command after the shadow discovered it buried in the snow, abandoned by the Skull Kid.
Snowhead. The masked man's forgotten item is in Snowhead.
Dark Link kept walking.
There's a tree that acts as the center of all light magic in the world,
Majora had said.
I discovered it resides here in Termina a long time ago, but I know not where.
The shadow kept walking, kept trekking on. The Tektites either ran or died. The snow did not bother the shadow as it progressed upward through the mountains. It kept the light arrow by its side. Day turned to night, and night turned to day. Dark Link reached a particular ravine deep in the mountains, climbing carefully down the mountain wall to a gorge. Peering through the thick curtain of snow this far north, it saw a speck at the gorge's very bottom, almost completely covered in snow.
Yes,
Dark Link thought. The same feeling it got when it killed people began to fill the shadow's veins.
Yes.
Dark Link approached it carefully, lifting the disc of wood. The shadow brushed snow and frost from its chilled surface. It was the face of a rather large pig, tusks bared and face contorted in anger. The masked man, according to the demon, had lost it in a blizzard in one of his treks here to claim Majora's mask. The mask of sense was now Dark Link's. The shadow placed the mask over its face and closed its eyes, raising the arrow. The light magic, still barely, radiated from its tip.
While you must continue watching the boy and the imp, you must also seek a way to discover where this tree is hidden, because you will find it, and you will burn it to the ground.
A light was born in the shadow's mind, and its red eyes opened. The demon couldn't see it or smell it, but it could feel the proper path to take. Dark Link kept the light arrow by its side and the mask on its face as it climbed from the ravine. The shadow walked through the white wastelands, through the heavy snow, traversing through the mountain lands. It didn't pass anybody on its way back, setting its mind towards its destination. The final night came, guiding its journey under a sky streaked with blood. Eventually, the shadow saw Clocktown on the horizon. Dark Link never stopped.